the Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Persia is where the dreams of American saber rattling against China died. Okay? That Beijing summit was the end. It's over. Anyone that doesn't recognize how over the Asia-Pacific theater is delusional. Okay? The quote-unquote pivot to Asia that started under the Obama administration, it's done. It is done. What gives?
Антисемитизмом называется распространение вражды к евреям. Когда проклятая исламская монархия доживала свое последнее время, она старалась натравить темных рабочих и крестьян на евреев.
Trump sides with Jusha against the cowardly South Korean government. Yeah, this is where I'm going to be at odds with the liberals. It's actually a unique predicament because actually, this is probably good for South Korea as well. This is one of those instances where Donald Trump is like low-key not the worst on as far as like moving or advancing in the direction of normalizing relations with Cuba or Korea, sorry. Normalizing relations between South Korea and North Korea. He did this last time around as well, and I defended it. I wish he would normalize relations with Cuba. Fuck. But yeah, no, this is a solid move. Dude, you want to hear something crazy? Donald Trump has been far better on the Korea issue than Biden was. As a matter of fact, the fake coup d'etat, one could even say, happened under the watchful gaze of the Brandonian administration. Donald Trump, bar none, out of all of our contemporary presidents, is probably one of the best on the Korea issue. And I don't know if it's because he just like loves Kim Jong-un or something. I don't know what the fuck it is. But low-key, this is the one area where I, haven't criticized him as much. As a matter of fact, I've defended it. When people ask me like, oh, what did you, back in the day, in Trump 1, people would always ask me, what is like one good policy of Donald Trump? I would always say Korea. Because a big part of the reason why, regardless of the internal dynamics, the domestic policies in South Korea, and regardless of the military action that Trump actually took in North Korea, if you remember, I think in Trump 1, they sent like Delta Force or something, and they just like slaughtered a bunch of Korean fishermen. It was disgusting. And then that information leaked about that operation. It was really fucked up. But outside of that, as far as like the broader, the broader conversation, allowing South Korea and North Korea to communicate with one another without American intervention, and also restricting the military operations in the Korean Peninsula, that was actually good. That was unironically a real move by the American government in the direction of a far better peaceable negotiation between DPRK and South Korea. On the one hand, they put the THAADs there in Trump 1, which actually destroyed South Korea's relationship with China at the time. So that wasn't good. On the other hand, this time around, Donald Trump took the THAADs, which then the South Korean government got pissed off about because they were like, well, what the fuck? We lost billions of dollars in economic activity and trade from China because you put these THAADs here and then you took them away from us without us having a single say in the matter. Why do we lose billions of dollars of trade from China if you're going to take the THAADs away from us so you can panic ship them to Israel? So Trump giveth and Trump taketh. That is the art of the steal. That is the art of the deal. Okay? But reducing military activity in the Korean Peninsula is always a good thing because it allows South Korea and North Korea to deal with one another as peers. That's why, ironically enough, Biden, who ran on, normalizing international rule-based order and all that shit, kind of fucked it kind of fucked it pretty hard, both with Israel, but then even with South Korea. Because if you recall, when Biden was president, South Korea had a incel psychopathic president who facilitated a fake coup d'etat, tried to do a coup d'etat, if you remember, and then the people got really mad and then they stormed the fucking parliament and, you know, democracy thrived that day. That was a day where liberalism actually defended against authoritarian initiatives. It was kind of crazy. That fake coup could not have been facilitated without the Biden administration's watchful gaze. And part of the reason why I'm saying that is because the Biden administration did not communicate their criticisms of the president at the time and their initiatives. It was crazy. They didn't say a single damn thing about it, which leads me to believe that they were probably not upset about it, I guess. I don't know what their calculation for Korea was. I'll be honest. I don't know what Biden's calculation was. Giving a bone to China because they're saving oil markets. It's a mix with America lacking any carries in East Asia. Could be a retreat from the Asian pivot. Oh, no, it is. Yes. I already told you guys this. The Strait of Hormuz and the Gulf of Persia is where the dreams of American saber rattling against China died. Okay? That Beijing summit was the end. It's over. Anyone that doesn't recognize how over the Asia-Pacific theater is delusional. Okay? The quote-unquote pivot to Asia that started under the Obama administration, it's done. It is done. Okay? It's done. And it's really funny that it's happening at a time when Japan, which is the number one op of China in that region, but also the number one trade partner, is becoming increasingly more militant against China and talking about potentially building their self-defense forces, which is unconstitutional, according to the Japanese constitution, talking about building their industrial base for defense. Talk about making the worst bet of all time. Talk about making the worst bet of all time, where America is forced to retreat from the region when you are completely, when America's killing its Asia pivot. Japan is like, no, we got this, dude. We'll fucking take over Taiwan if necessary. That was, when I was in China, that was the talk of the town. If you remember, when I was visiting China, when I was traveling through China, Takaichi came out and said, we will defend Taiwan with military force if necessary. That is a major no-no. Not because, like, you know, obviously the People's Republic has ambitions for unification, peaceful reunification, or maybe even militarily unifying across the Taiwanese Strait. But that also was a somber reminder of Japanese imperial fascism, because they occupied Taiwan. So they were basically saying, like, we're going to occupy Taipei again. That's the way that it was read by the Chinese government, by the mainland. That was a massive fuck up of diplomacy. So the fact that Takaichi is going further and further right and engaging in more jingoistic sentiment against China at a time when America is retreating from the Asia pivot is very funny. I don't know where it goes. Japanese politics is probably going to change dramatically as well in the next decade or so, because you have nothing. Because if you think about it, I mean, aside from their economies, these places are basically holdover states for American military to, like, launch campaigns if they want to. So the Japanese economy is fucked. The yen is imploding. And also on top of that, they're taking a more right-wing position. It's unsustainable. It's completely unsustainable. Japan loves surprises. True. They do love surprises. But Japan also notoriously, even if I disagree with what America did here, Japan also notoriously has received tremendous blowback for said surprises. So if I was Japan, I wouldn't be moving in this dangerous direction. That's all I'm saying. 4 top officials from Japan's ruling party will be visiting the Yasukuni Shrine tomorrow. Prime Minister Takaichi is expected to avoid the shrine for diplomatic reasons, but the LDP Secretary General, General Council Chair, this is the war crime one, right? An election strategy committee chair will make a group visit. These are all important politicians that Takaichi picked the top spots, top posts for in the party. Local media reports that individual visits by politicians are common, but a group visit by top party executives like this is rare. It seems that Takaichi wants to communicate to conservative voters that her party supports the shrine, even if she won't personally visit on the 15th. The Yasukuni Shrine is diplomatically problematic because it enshrines Imperial Japan's war dead, including World War II leaders who were executed as Class A war criminals after the war. Yasukuni's museum does not describe World War II as a war of aggression and treats wartime leaders such as Tojo as martyrs. In the past, the United States, South Korea, and China have protested when prime ministers visit the shrine. Takaichi has previously visited the Yasukuni Shrine on many occasions. Before becoming prime minister, she said, "If I were ever to become the leader of Japan, I would like to continue visiting. I feel very strongly about this. Even if the prime minister does not visit, it is likely she will have someone send an offering on her behalf." Dude, Takaichi is a fucking psycho. And it's so crazy because like Japanese society broadly loves him. Like the Japanese youth love him because they find her to be like so cute and so youthful. It is such, dude, I don't even want to talk about Japanese politics. It really fucks me up. Anyway, let's just move on from Japanese politics. I don't know how the fuck we got here. God, I'm so much more invested in this conversation than fucking watching Tim Pool talk about how Trump is not authoritarian. Anyway, Japanese politics is very chuddy. Yes. Japan and Iran are two nations with autism in very different ways, okay? Two autistic nations, but like very different kinds of autism. I would go so far as to say China is also a very autistic nation, but also a different kind of autism, maybe closer to the Iranian style of autism. The Islamic Republic of Japan. Anyway, Trump says he ordered Pete Hegseth to substantially reduce joint U.S.-South Korea diplomatic military exercises, citing his relationship with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un and calling the drills hostile. Trump says he's helping North Korea because South Korea refused to join his failed war against Iran. Yeah, this is a dumb reason, but the real reason, it's not a bad thing. This is not a bad thing. This is a good thing. Okay? But that's Trump. He's going to fucking say whatever dumb fuck reason he has. But the real point behind this is probably throwing a bone to PRC, to China, and also allowing South Korea and North Korea to normalize relations amongst themselves, which is not a bad thing. That is a good thing. Okay. The reason that he's bringing up is fucking stupid, and I don't even trust him on that. I don't think that's the reason why he's doing it, because he was like this last time around as well, weirdly enough. Dude, imagine in our lifetime, Korea reunification in our lifetime under Trump would be insane. It's probably not going to happen, but why do you always want Europe to be sovereign, but Japanese sovereignty is bad? How dare a small island nation that's not Cuba try to protect their sovereignty against a much larger neighbor? Wait, what? When did I say I don't want Japanese sovereignty? What are you talking about? Japan is basically a fucking cum sleeve for America. What the fuck? Are you joking? Also, doing small bean Japan is crazy. What is the argument that you're trying to make? Are you saying that Japan reoccupying Taipei would be good for Taiwanese liberation or something? Is that the argument you're making? Did you forget what Japan did? Do you know what Japan did? Let's start there. Do you know what Japan did during World War II? Are you familiar? Because they were doing their own Holocaust in China. They were also occupying China, including Taipei. Colonial occupation. They did a Holocaust in China. I want every country to have sovereignty, and I want every country to have whatever kind of trade relations that they want to have with other nations, whether they are considered foreign adversaries of the United States of America or not, doesn't fucking matter to me. You just want world peace now? That's simple? Yes. Anyway, based on my very good relationship with Kim Jong-un of North Korea, I am not happy with the fact that the United States has long ago agreed to participate in joint military exercises with South Korea. These exercises are not only costly, with much of these costs paid for by the United States of America, as usual, but send a signal that is totally inappropriate and hostile to a country that, as long as Donald J. Trump has been president, has been unthreatening and respectful. Therefore, and based on the fact that it is too late to cancel, I have instructed Secretary of War Pete Hegseth to substantially reduce the joint military exercises. While somewhat unrelated, I recently asked the president of South Korea if they would like to join us in the denuclearization of the Islamic Republic of Japan, not Iran, but Japan. And they said, no thanks. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. I hope liberals don't eat the bait on this, which is probably not going to happen because they get really mad about this shit. They'll say, oh, this is a betrayal of our allies. But it's not. I don't know what the current South Korean government's attitude is, but I suspect it's far better. in terms of normalizing relationships, because it was like Moon was doing that, and then it's Moon and then Yoon, right? The incel was not. The incel was like super right wing and far more reactionary about dealings with North Korea. And then this new guy is also the new guy is also woke, or in comparison to Yoon, obviously. Sorry if this is a stupid question, but how can Japan do genocide against China when it's nowhere near China's population? Wait, what? What do you mean? They were an industrial force that were attacking a country that was largely colonized by other powers and were slaughtering the peasant population. They slaughtered more than 20 million people. But yeah, South Korea 1 day ago proposes talks to officially end war with North. Okay, see, this is what I mean. This is liberals taking the bait. Yeah, South Korea's president has proposed talks with its northern neighbor to officially end the war between the two that's technically still active. Lee Jae-myung suggested a multi-layered security system to avoid flare-ups along the country's de facto border. I think that I think that this is good, and I understand that this is partially because of Trump's fuck-ups for sure. But this decision by Donald Trump is not bad. It's a good thing. Yeah, not just China. Japan killed people in South Korea too. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And then there's the comfort women scandal. I mean, Japan is the Nazi Germany of the region. I don't know how else to describe it. Like they did unbelievable amounts of violence in the region. Joseon, not South Korea. Yeah, hell on earth, right? You said Holocaust, not genocide. Yes, what they did was basically another mechanized, like they had concentration camps. They had like similar experiments that they conducted, like Mengele style experiments that Unit 731 conducted on the Chinese population. Like the reason why I don't shy away from making that comparison is because I think most people would recognize that comparison to be apt. Yeah, the rape of Nanking is one of the most horrific massacres in history. It's just like not, because it's China, it doesn't get a lot of coverage, especially here in the Western world, but it's still a very real wound that Japan chooses not to recognize. And it wasn't just China. They did it all across Asia, which is why it's so crazy that for most Americans' perspectives, Japan is this like kawaii country. Whereas if you look at like some of these other countries, like China, for example, literally rides for the nukes. They love that America dropped the sun twice on Japan. Like they straight up will tell you that. Those are like there's two common positions in China that, you know, I consider to be, you know, I understand where they're coming from. I just don't agree with it. It's like their love for Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon makes sense. And also Hiroshima and Nagasaki, they ride for it. What's up with China loving Kissinger? What do you mean? They fucking recognize the PRC and unrecognize the KMT, unrecognize the ROC. That's huge. There's no People's Republic. There's no modern China without that move. Anyway, ultimately, this is a good thing, though. And as U.S. is pulling its last aircraft carrier in Asia as Trump focuses on Iran in the Western Hemisphere. Cedin deden Nesrin baban.